AEW, what a year. I'm John Redland with some real honest thoughts on the AEW product. Year one, the highs. What a year. It's had some good stuff. It's had some bad stuff, and I'll talk about the bad stuff in another video when I talk about the lows. And I'm going to have probably some people that aren't going to be very happy with me. But I've actually enjoyed 80 to 85% of the AEW product. Now, not everything's been great. No company is going to be 100% great. But you know what's great about this company? They're learning. They're doing some good shit. And they're doing some shit that other companies aren't doing. New Japan's done some good stuff. WWE's done some good stuff. But AEW just overall feels like a pretty, fun product. That doesn't mean it's perfect, but I'll talk about that in another video. So, it's not going to be a countdown for them. I'm going to talk about, the good and, maybe a little bit of indifferent and maybe some things they could improve. But this is going to be a very praiseworthy video. Despite the fact that some people may think that I hate AEW, I don't. So, let's start off talking about the emphasis on tag team wrestling. Private Party has been fucking fantastic. I love Private Party. Mark Quinn's a future breakout single superstar. Isaiah Cassidy's pretty damn good. The Gin and Juice finisher is fantastic. Sure, they've kind of, gone a little bit low and stuff like that lately. Basically being relegated to dark or working matches where they're always losing, but they're a dynamite tag team and great and young, and they are very, very talented. Jurassic Express. No, I don't care for Marco Stunt. Talk about him in the Lowe's video. But Jungle Boy's breakout, single star. Him and Luchasaurus are a great duo. David Goliath, all that big man, little man, all this stuff. And FTR, they recently signed. I'll talk about them in a later entrant. I do like the Lucha Bros. I wish the Lucha Bros were used a little bit differently. SCU, I love SCU. Kazarian and Daniels are fan-fucking-tastic. I love them. I think that they know exactly how to put together a great tag team match. I don't even mind Trent. I'm not a big fan of Chuck, but Trent helps carry the team of the best friends. And there are plenty of other teams. I mean, I don't mind Angelico and Jack Evans. I think they are pretty damn good, but they're probably going to break them up at some point. But, even like low-level tag teams, like, Sonny Kiss and Joey Janela. I mean, when you can make me, be able to sit through a Joey Janela match, that's credit to Sonny Kiss. And Sonny Kiss is a good performer. Now, okay, is he green? Does he need improvement? Absolutely. But this team is certainly helping, and they are doing some great shit, and I really enjoy what they're doing. I like how they're doing this shit, and, I just like the fact that tag team wrestling feels important. That being said, one thing they probably need to do is shorten some of these matches a little bit. We don't need 20-minute matches on Dynamite. We don't need that all the damn time. Sometime on pay-per-view, yes, we do. Now, one thing I loved, Omega and Page versus the Young Bucks of Revolution. That's tag team wrestling in a goddamn nutshell. That's how you do it. That was fucking fabulous. FTR versus Omega and Page, not exactly my favorite. Not exactly something I really enjoyed, but it was what it was. It was pretty damn good. Wasn't great, but at least it did, it served its purpose and advanced its story and everything. I'll talk about that storyline in a little bit, but I just like the emphasis on tag team wrestling, the fact that it feels important. Their tag team titles feel more important. SCU being the Lucha Bros is a little bit shocking. Omega and Page being the second AEW Tag Team Champions was even more shocking, but they did put in some good performances. Even as somebody that doesn't like praising Kenny Omega, hey, it was pretty damn good to see Page get a chance to build up even a little bit more. But the emphasis on tag team wrestling has been a highlight of AEW. And building talents like Darby Allin and MJF. Now, I saw MJF on a couple indie shows before he, appeared at All In. And he was in an opening match against Matt Cross. And what was great about watching MJF, you could tell he got it right away. And he has been great, the whole I'm bearing you and you know it. Cocky heel, the fact that he is great. He's tremendous on promos. He's fucking tremendous on promos. He's one of the best promos going today. Face or heel, doesn't matter. And I like MJF, and I like the fact they've been utilizing him pretty well. Now, I didn't really care a ton for how they built him with Moxley. But, that being said, he did show up and did do some really good shit and was really, really impressive with how he handled himself in, his first ever pay-per-view main event, at least on that big of a stage. So he did some good shit. And MJF has just really been one of the few highlights of even, the lower, tier of Dynamite. He's always great. He's always somebody that I'm going to lock into and watch because he just gets it. And at being so young, he is going to be, doing some great things in wrestling for 15 to 20 years or however long he wants to be in there. He is fucking tremendous. He is a goddamn great performer. He's a Dynamite performer. No, I don't just say that because he's on Dynamite. He was great even in front of indie crowds. And he's great now. And he's only going to get better. And then talents like Darby Allin. Darby's another guy that I met on the indies. And Darby is somebody that could be their Jeff Hardy, their Sting. And judging by the way he keeps landing with bumps and shit like that, he's gonna have some real difficulty walking if he doesn't tone that shit down. Now, he is a great performer, and he is insane with all the shit he does. He is really, really crazy. That being said, he really needs to take it easy with some of these bums, because I love Darby, and I want to see Darby, grow as a performer. I also want to see him be able to walk by the time he's 30 and 35 and 40, and I fear that he won't do that. But that being said, these are two pillars, face and heel. I mean, Darby, rather, is even kind of a bit of a tweener. They could do some really, really good stuff, provided that his body holds up. But just the amount of stuff that they're doing, these two guys are doing, they're doing some great stuff. And yes, they're trying to build up some of the women. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about the women's division at some point, especially in the Lowe's video, because I ain't got a lot of praise for it here. But those are two talents I think that could really, be anchors. And I'm not going to say anything about Orange Cassidy. I'll say that in the Lowe's video. I don't think that's really shocking, but maybe it might not be what you think. So, one thing that's going to surprise you, though, is Chris Jericho. He's going to be a hype till February, till he lost the championship to Moxley. Now, Moxley had to beat him, don't get me wrong. When he beat him in Revolution, it's the right call, the right goddamn thing. He had to fucking do that. The problem is Jericho has now gotten to the point where he's just goofy and just doesn't give a shit. Now, he was doing goofy shit even as champion. A little bit of the bubbly, all that stuff and everything, and whatever he was doing. But at least with the inner circle and trying to help Sammy Guevara and trying to make Jake Hager interesting, which wasn't, which is a monumental task in itself, and trying to help Santana and Ortiz, he was doing some really, really good stuff. And, as champion, yes, I wasn't really a big fan of his work. His work was really slacking. He really was having some issues, with cardio and everything, but he was putting together some great, points, some great parts of his matches, because there were some points where I'm like, okay, that's the Chris Jericho of old instead of the old Chris Jericho. But as champion, he actually did work pretty well. And I guess you could argue putting on ex-WWE guy, but he also was the biggest star at the time, and it made sense. Got more ratings, and then eventually when he lost it to, yes, another ex-WWE guy, at least the storyline made sense. So Jericho, for the first 6 or so months, really did help AEW. And I think he deserves a lot of praise for that. Getting talents like Moxley, Miro, FTR, Archer, Starcher, if you will. No, I'm going to go one by one. Moxley's been a great boost for them. He is fucking fantastic. He has been, definitely one of the pillars. And I guess, okay, you could say, well, they're just using another ex-WWE guy. Thing is, he's allowed to turn loose. He was able to do this shit a lot more in New Japan as well during his, time where he was there, like for the G1 and stuff like that, which was fan-fucking-tastic. His work with Shota Umino was a great shooter, as you will. Moxley has carried himself like a champion, has done well. Yes, the pandemic has unfortunately put a dent in that, but I think he's carried himself like a champion. And Miro, yes, he just debuted. As a recording of this video, he just debuted. I'm a little bit tentative of how they're, a little bit worried about how they're going to use him, but I think they're going to make sure that he's good, he's featured well, and hopefully he is, hopefully he's up to the task. I think he will be, but hopefully they realize what they have in him, what WWE had in him and lost. He is one of the few ex-WWE guys where I'm like, okay, cool, they signed him. And FTR, they've been great. Even though there's been some goofiness and everything, they've been able to have more interesting tag team matches than some of the other matches that have been laid out. He's doing some good shit. Dax and Cash and everything, they're doing some good stuff. And what I really like about this is that what I really like about them signing is it fits. They just feel more like they're stars there. To be fair, they didn't want to sign with WWE, and why would the company use them if they didn't want to be there and want to resign? But FTR just feels more special. Hopefully now they can, carry on as tag team champions for a while. Lance Archer. I love Lance Archer. He was great in New Japan, had a great career resurgence, especially after the breakup of the Killer Elite Squad, and Lance has been fan-fucking-tastic. And sure, maybe he should have beaten Cody. I get kind of why he didn't, but hopefully he's going to beat Mox at some point. He would be an interesting, at least short-term world champion for like a few months. But Lance Archer was a great signing. Ricky Starks, I love Ricky Starks. Seeing him at one of the first indie shows I went to and seeing him grow, being on the NWA program for a while until he left because of all the issues that were going on. Like the fact that they've shut down their TV tapings because they couldn't get an audience because of the pandemic and everything. But Ricky Starks fits in perfectly. He's great on promos. He's great in the ring. He really just has that cocky air about him, and they've signed some good talents. Another positive, Cody's TNT Open Challenge. Now, not every match has been great. And you could argue the Scorpio Sky maybe should have beaten him, as I would like to have seen that. But his TNT Open Challenge, pretty damn good. Not great, but more positive than negative. Now, yes, a couple of the indie guys that were brought in, okay, was it great? The match with Warhorse was fine for what it was. I'm not knocking Warhorse. He's got his fans, and I'm certainly not a detractor of his. He has built his gimmick up pretty damn well. But people point to that match as like, okay, maybe Cody's trying to face too many indie guys. Now, he did some good shit, though, with it. Yes, it got to the point where he got cocky and then he got beat by Brody Lee. Don't worry, I'm going to mention Brody Lee on the next video. But Cody's TNT Open Challenge at least was interesting, and sometimes, oh shit, who's he going to face? Eddie Kingston. That match against Eddie Kingston. Sure, okay, the thumbtacks. You could argue they shouldn't have brought that up. That was one minor blip. Signing Eddie Kingston is another thing I'm going to go into right now, because signing him, one of the best promos out there. I mean, I would argue he's better than MJF. I would argue he is. Has been around a whole lot longer, but his promos is just him with the volume barely turned up, because I imagine Eddie Kingston probably is that fired up in general. And the fact they signed him was a really big boom to them, and he has really helped them, and they have helped him, and it's great. Keep him around for a while. Eddie Kingston is phenomenal. So, let's go to the next one. Emphasis on managers. Taz, him managing Cage and Ricky Starks is fantastic. Jake Roberts managing Lance Archer. Tully Blanchard managing Shawn Spears, which, you need to try everything you can to make Shawn Spears interesting. It's not that Shawn Spears is bad. It's just after that Cody feud, that was it. Him managing FTR is going to be pretty damn fun. And are there other managers? I'm forgetting about Vicky, but who the fuck cares about Vicky? Nyla really doesn't need a manager. She can kind of talk on her own. Good. It's good emphasis on managers and everything. Sometimes, okay, maybe they're a little too manager crazy, maybe a little too faction crazy. That being said, they've broken up a couple factions recently, and one got broken up due to the travel issues, Pac and the Lucha Bros Death Triangle. But emphasis on managers is really nice, and it's really good to see, like the focusing on the fact, hey, if they can't talk, let's have people talk for them. Pay-per-views usually feel more special. Okay, All Out wasn't great, for lack of a better term. In fact, All Out, parts of it pretty much sucked. Some of it drug on too long, and then you had some spots that were unnecessary. The Matt Hardy spot. But their pay-per-views usually feel special. They only do 4 a year. They do some good shit. They actually manage to make things work pretty well. And yeah, the buy-ins aren't fantastic, but by and large, I'd say 3/4 of their pay-per-views are at least decent to good, maybe even great. The Revolution match, as I mentioned before, is really fantastic. But the pay-per-views feel special. Now, yes, you could argue in the U.S. paying $50 for a pay-per-view is fucking ridiculous, but you know what? I don't think it's that ridiculous. Here's why I don't think it's ridiculous. Because they got to make money somehow. They don't have a network yet. They don't have a backlog. They don't have a way to do that. And also, they got so many big money contracts. Some to those people deserve it. Others of those don't deserve it. Like, there are some that are getting paid way more than they're worth, in my personal opinion. But again, that's just my opinion. And there are some that shouldn't even be under contract as performers. But honestly, their I'm trying to be positive here, but their pay-per-views, they got to justify the price. And, they got good streaming service deals and everything. Maybe not everything perfect. And I'm not saying they delivered on everything they promised. But by and large, they've done some really good shit. And then we get the Elite Saga, Omega, Page, and the Bucks. This is going to surprise you guys. The Revolution tag match, once again, one of my favorite matches of the year. Here's why I'm happy with this saga. No, the Bucks are not my favorite tag team. The Bucks have not really been all that great, on promos. But if you're going to go with the Bucks, Omega, and Page, and having this storyline that tries to interweave itself and everything, and, go from being the Elite and their friendships and everything to Dynamite, and then the pay-per-views and stuff like that, and tell this story that's got multiple chapters in it, at least they're sticking with it and they're trying to make it interesting. Now, making Page a fucking drunk to where he, just keeps screwing up his friendships, okay, maybe that's, getting a little bit worn down now, and, he's going to be probably, doing a redemption thing where maybe he beats whoever the fuck it is. Maybe Archer beats Moxley, and then Page beats Archer and finally becomes champion. Or Omega beats Archer, or maybe Omega beats Moxley, and Archer doesn't win at all, and then we get Page versus Omega, where Page finally wins it at, say, Double or Nothing next year. You can say Double or Nothing next year. I won't be able to hear you, but you could say that. But there's been some good storytelling here. Now, again, Omega ain't my favorite, and the Bucks ain't my favorite. I like Adam Page. But I will give them credit for sticking with the storyline, even if I haven't liked everything. They tried telling a good story, and I can't fault them for that. I can't fault them for that because at least enough of the guys are getting in the ring to do some good shit, even if they're not my favorites. More unscripted promos. That's been kind of nice. Now, sometimes it's been to the detriment of some people, like some of the backstage interviewers. Alex Marvez probably should not be on TV. That being said, the unscripted promos are able to go out there and cut loose. More often than not, they've been pretty good. Sure, there have been a few too many that have taken shots at WWE, and WWE's taken shots at AEW. And they're trying to make it like the Monday Night Wars, even though, like, a fraction of the people that watch during that time are watching now, but it is what it is. I do like the fact that they're allowed to they're letting the talents go out there and cut loose a little more and have some fun. AEW Dark. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of AEW Dark, but I'm going to tell you what I like about it. Featuring some newer to us, unsigned talents, Captain Shawn Dean, Will Hobbs, I think, just recently got signed. Featuring some other women, Skylar Moore, Kylan King. Abaddon got featured on there, I believe, and then suddenly, or maybe she got featured on Dynamite, I forget. She got featured and she got signed. Anna Jay got signed from there after being featured. But yeah, Kylan King, Skylar Moore, and various others can actually do some, you can actually get some a good look at some talents for the future. Now, I'm not saying the Dark's absolutely perfect. 50 minutes to about 70 minutes is perfect. Trying to go over that is fucking overkill. They've had some that have gone almost 2 hours. That's fucking stupid. Don't have them go over 2 hours. But AEW Dark has its positives. Now, not all of them are positives. But the fact that they're featuring some talents, that we could see rise up and get signed is not the worst thing in the world. And at least it gives some of their signed talents a chance to get in the ring and work with these guys. And hey, maybe we can get to see some talents that are lower on the card get some wins. Maybe then they could rise up the card. It's a win-win, but they need to kind of smooth things out with Dark. Nyla Rose winning the Women's Championship. I liked it. I like the fact some people hated it because they just can't accept, the fact that trans women are actually women, and you can't accept that. You can actually do that, just so you know. It's not going to kill you, or it's not going to turn you into a bad person to accept that. Take it from somebody that used to be extremely hateful before. But I like that Nyla Rose won the championship. Now, it wasn't a great reign. She did win it from Riho, who should have not been the first champion. Nyla Rose should have been the first champion. And then held it in face of Hikaru Shida, and then lost it. Hopefully Nyla Rose gets back up and can win the championship at some point. And finishing up with a few of these, Dynamite feels more special than NXT. Feels more must-see. And that's not to say NXT is bad. That's not it at all. I just feel like the quality of that show has taken a bit of a dip, even though the performance level is pretty high. Up and down the card, sure, AEW has not been perfect. I'm not going to try and say that it has been. But guess what? AEW is at least trying some things, and I'll give them credit. Now, not everything they tried has worked. And I'm going to talk about some of that stuff in the low video. But they have done some pretty good shit. And Dynamite, at least at its worst, it's not always boring. Now, some of it is boring. Some of it is like, holy shit, why the fuck am I watching this? It reminds me of like bad WCW. Other times it's like, holy shit, this is sports-based wrestling. This is some good shit. This is the high level work that I want to see. And so that in that case, Dynamite is pretty much a positive. As far as the women, because I'm going to have some not so praiseworthy things to say about the women, Hikaru Shida, I think, has been a pretty good star here. Anna Jay, I like what they've been doing with her so far, except for the Dark Order thing. Penelope Ford, I don't think is great, but I think is better than some people give her credit for. I do like that she uses the fisherman's suplex, and does some good stuff. I like that, and here's why I like that. Because doing the springboard cutter isn't the best thing in the world. Not the best thing in the world. Because it requires too much assistance. Now, yeah, you say that about a lot of moves. But that way it doesn't make her look like she's almost going to get dropped on her head trying to do that. Don't do that shit. But, excuse me for not wanting talents to get hurt. But I think Penelope Ford has some good potential. And I like Kip Sabian. I mean, it's not about the women's division, but they are engaged, so good for them. Britt Baker's promos have more often than not been pretty good. And there's been some other good stuff with the women's division. Some, not all. But that's really going to be it for the positives about the AEW product. Overall, it's been pretty damn good. It hasn't been great all the time. They got some growing pains, and they got some shit that they're really going to need to iron out. And I'm going to talk about that in the next video. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.